In today's episode, we are joined by the co-founders of Rad. Rad is a next generation platform that allows restaurant operators to create actionable data from the tools that they already have within their environment. Jeff and Ryan are one of a kind in the way that they tackle the data and really solve things for people. They also were able to bring on one of their clients, James McGee from Dave's Hot Chicken. If you're not familiar with their brand, James talks quite a bit about who they are and what they do, where they came about. James's audio is a little bit rough. I did what I could to clean it up, but hope you enjoy the show. If you don't know me, my name is Jeremy Julian. I am the Chief Revenue Officer for Custom Business Solutions. We do restaurant point of sale for multi-unit restaurants. Check us out at cbsnorthstar.com. Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. I thank everyone out there for joining us. As I say each and every time, I know you guys got lots of choices, so thanks for hanging out. Today, I am joined by a couple of co-founders and one of their brands. And so I'm going to start with Jeff. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then we can go around the horn and let everybody know who all is on the recording, and then we can talk a little bit about the product that you guys built and why it's solving so many awesome problems.
Great. Thanks. My name is Jeff Porter. I am the COO of Rad, Restaurant Analytics Delivered. Ryan and I are the founders of this company, and we're excited to chat.
Awesome. Awesome. How about you, Ryan? You want to take that other co-founder moniker over and talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jeremy. I'm Ryan Burhorn. I am other co-founder of Rad and currently acting as the CEO. So
Awesome. And you guys chose to bring one of your amazing customers. And ironically, I knew this customer before I met you guys, and I obviously know the product. But James, you're a face and a name that I know a lot of people around the industry will know. But why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you get to do before we jump into Rad and why Rad exists?
Absolutely. Nice to see you guys. James McGee, he's CFO over at Dave's Hot Chicken. I also co-founded an advisory group, Results Through Strategy, about 18 years ago. Outside of being the CFO over at Dave's, I'm also a franchisee.
Not know that.
It's
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. So Jeff, I'm gonna start with you. Talk to me a little bit about Rad. Besides the fact that it's like a 1980s adjective that we used to use for things, where did Rad come from? Talk to me a little bit about why does Rad exist? And you and Ryan obviously chose to step out on a limb, and because there's not enough analytics platforms out there, there's not enough people that are looking at data to do things, and you guys chose to do something about it.
Yeah, definitely partially came from the fact that it's a great adjective from the 80s, 100%. Ryan and I both come from a background that's rich in data, working with data, and working mostly in a consulting fashion. We together saw the opportunity to, after many years of rebuilding the same model in a consulting capacity for restaurant and hospitality groups, to take that expertise that we had developed and create more of an analytics solution that's very focused on the industry, and rather than just takes data and puts it in front of people, actually helps them make prescriptive decisions. So that's the genesis of the idea and how we put it together.
Awesome. Ryan, talk to me a little bit about, because again, data, and I've said this quite a few times on the show, data not analyzed, data not put into a prescriptive way to drive business decisions. I don't want to say it's worthless, but it does very little. Where I have seen others, not your guys' product, but where I've seen others is they throw a whole bunch of stuff up on the screen, but it doesn't necessarily drive the behavior. It doesn't drive those things. Talk to me a little bit about how you guys created a theory that says every data element that we have should really be giving the end user that needs to be able to make a business decision, but needs to create some emotion for them to do something. Talk to me a little bit about how you guys think about that.
yeah, absolutely. Right. We have a saying that Rad cuts through the noise, if you will. Right. You're absolutely right in that there is a wealth of data out there, and standalone, it can be super hard to comb through. We really sought out to build a solution that is analytics first in its approach, meaning really a guided and directed experience of not necessarily what you did, how are you trending, reporting, which is still critical and we can support, but really more of this, what should I be doing to differentiate ourselves and to ultimately, honestly, have that measurable impact on an organization. We aim to cut through the noise and provide all levels of the organization the metrics that matter to them and accessible at their fingertips.
Yeah, having been in the restaurant tech space, which is where James and I had engaged some close to 20 years ago, there's lots of different data elements. There's sales, there's labor, there's inventory, there's food cost, there's staffing, there's weather data. There's so many different data elements. Talk to me really about where Rad focuses, because again, every one of those impacts. I remember talking with a brand that used to be right up the road from Anaheim Stadium. And on game days, the place was bombed, but the traffic changed on game days because everybody wanted to be at the store at 5:30 so that they could get to the game by 7. And when the Angels changed their game times to earlier, they changed those theories. And so sales, labor, all of it has to come into play. So talk to me a little bit about how you guys focus, because just looking at sales, absence of labor, absence of food costs, absence of any of those kind of things in a vacuum is really, I guess, short-sighted if you're not looking at it holistically. Talk to me a little bit about kind of the theory before we jump into kind of how Dave's Hot Chicken is using the data that you guys are producing.
For sure. And you mentioned a word there, holistically, which is totally key. We have an offering in Rad, if you will, that we call our opportunities matrix. You can think of the big four of what you were talking about: sales, labor, COGS, and guest sentiment being a key component there, each on their own, important to understand. But as you said, operating in a vacuum. The power of what we do is really bringing that together in an in-your-face sort of approach, the metrics correlated so that you can understand the triangulation of how is guest sentiment impacting labor, vice versa, how's labor impacting guest sentiment, how is this all driving sales or perhaps hurting sales. So we really aim for, again, that holistic view, simple, easy to use, in your face, but being able to make those correlations between the metrics that matter the most.
And I think an interesting thing to really add in there is we've always understood and focused on the fact restaurant operators' job is not to understand data.
Mm-hmm.
That is not their goal. What we can do for them in a world where there's ever increasing amounts of data, a platform where they can find that information and understand and use it to make decisions that help them engage their guests, give guests a better experience. That's always our drive.
And the funny part is, amongst all of us, we probably have somewhere close to 100 years of restaurant experience. And in a vacuum, when you look at it, you go, oh, this all makes sense. Hey, I'm understaffed. So guess what? My guests are more frustrated. But when you don't look at it in that holistic manner, it makes it really tough, because you're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Hey, 3 people didn't show up for their shift today. We're going to deliver a crappy shift, and that crappy shift is going to be impacted, whether it be on guest sentiment and or cook times are going to be longer, my drive-through times are going to be longer, whatever those items are. In a vacuum, it's very easy to see, but when you're running brands that have got hundreds of units and you're trying to figure out why the store that's 2 miles away from the next closest store is not doing as well, looking at data is how you can get down to the bottom of that. And so I'm going to pivot here to James. James, how and when did we get into running restaurants outside of the consulting side? Because I had no idea that you were also a franchisee. That's a fun story. I'd love to have you share with our listeners before we dig into why, because you literally can have the pick of the litter as far as analytics tools, and you obviously partnered with Rad. But tell me a little bit about the journey to being a franchisee.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've been very fortunate to partner with several different great brands and several different great ownership groups. So if you take a look at my journey, after starting our own practice, results through strategy, what I realized is that there was a massive vacuum in the, I'll call it fractional CFO space. I ended up partnering with different private equity groups, Catterton, Brentwood, to name a few, some great brands like Mendocino Farms, Wetzel's Pretzels, Blaze Pizza, and ultimately with Dave's Hot Chicken because of the like ownership group with Wetzel's Pretzels and Blaze Pizza. For me, I've been very fortunate, right? I've been here since store one. Just in the last 5 weeks, we've opened 17 stores.
Insane.
And we're on track to open up 100 stores next year, 100 to 110 stores next year, and on a base of 206. And that's all in a 5-year period of time. So we were very fortunate to get introduced to Rad through our VP of IT, who had worked with them over at Smashburger. And what I saw was a product that, quite candidly, 3 years ago was probably still a little bit raw, but they had the vision for what the restaurant industry needed. And the one piece we haven't talked on, which I think is really important, is there's two types of data. There's financial data and there's productivity
Mhm.
data. Okay. Financial data is an end result and has no actionable qualities to it. Okay. I cannot affect cost of goods sold percentage. I can affect actual versus theoretical. I cannot affect labor percentage. I can affect productivity measures like entrees per labor hour. Okay. Metrics that I can go from region to region, regardless of price tier, or time frame to time frame, regardless of things like minimum wage increases, which in California, we just went from 16 to 20 for limited service restaurants. And you start looking at all those different factors. Rad had the vision to really combine all the disparate data sources into productivity measures that were actionable for operations, right? How many hours of labor I needed, how many cases, in my case, of chicken I need that I'm missing. I go through 26 million pounds of chicken a year now.
That's insane. Funny enough, I remember when Dave's first came about, and I had the privilege probably 10 years ago to go to some of the original Nashville hot chicken places in Nashville. Can you take 30 seconds for those that may have been living under a rock and don't know what Dave's hot chicken is? Because it does go into why you guys have been able to scale. Because again, I've had people, because you guys have grown so rapidly. It's not like this brand that's been around for 40 years where everybody's gone there for some birthday dinner or something. Can you just give a 30-second snippet on where did Dave's come from, and how and why has it grown so fast before we jump into why this is so critical? Because I love what you had to say, and I want to dig into actionable data. But just for those listeners that are like, Dave's Hot Chicken, what is Dave's Hot Chicken? How did they get to 150? I don't even know who they are.
It is amazing. I've never seen anything like it. I've been doing nothing else besides restaurant finance and accounting for 31 years. Okay. This restaurant started at not even one unit. We started in a parking
Yep.
lot with three founders that literally combined had 900 bucks. And they went to Home Depot, bought a fryer, bought a table, bought an ACF, and then borrowed their friend's family's parking lot. And had some great support in the parking lot, moved to their first location. And at their first location, we found them, which is the management team and ownership team that's there today. The founders, I give them all the credit in the world. They have a vision for the brand, which is spicy hot chicken done in Tennessee style, which is basically you take a fried tender, you dip it in oil, and you apply a spice blend to it. Our Dave is a fine dining culinary chef. He has worked in some of the best restaurants. He's a spice nerd by trade, and he's done an awesome job of maintaining the brand. Armand, one of our other co-founders, is an absolute social media genius. To put it in perspective, we have more followers on Instagram and TikTok than Chipotle has.
Wow.
And they have literally 3,000 restaurants. We have 230.
That's incredible.
So, yeah, it's been a juggernaut. But the biggest piece of our growth has really came from our literally 85 franchisees that are the two of franchisees. These are all multi-unit groups with existing infrastructures managing other brands.
So super
we're
familiar.
very
And again, fast casual, walk up to the counter and order, as well as many of the stores have a drive-through.
Right.
I know the original store did not have a drive-through. At least I don't believe it did when I went up to LA to go to that first store. I think the majority of what you guys are building are now have drive-through stores. So just I wanted to give that context for those that aren't aware. James, I'm going to dig in a little bit to your comment about financial data, because all too often I hear from operators that all the finance people want to know is what's my P&L going to be? What's my labor percentage going to be? And I love that you take the opposite approach that says, let's give the people that are in the stores that are helping us make the money the different metrics to strive for, because you know what? Ultimately, those P&Ls are a result of their actions in the stores. They're a result of the guest sentiment. They're a result of what's happening, not necessarily they're the end result, not necessarily the means. How and why have you gotten that philosophy over the last 30 years? Because I think it's an incredibly different purview that a lot of financiers don't think about. And then let's talk a little bit about how Rad helps you get to those numbers.
No, listen, an ops support. That's what I call our team. Literally, our only job as a support center at Dave's Hot Chicken is to improve the return on invested capital for our franchisees. Plain and simple. It's our only job. Drive sales, control construction costs, control time costs. Okay, that's it. It's very simple. Now, within that is store level operations. Within store level operations, what are we doing? We're isolating opportunities for our franchisees to figure out exactly where in sales they have the ability to grow. For instance, attachment rates of drinks, third-party delivery percentage as a percent of total versus their exact region. These are all things that we apply within RAD to make sure that our franchisees know where to look. I'll give you one specific example. Our Minnesota franchisee, and they know this, I'll call them out on it. They literally only spent 0.16% of third-party delivery on marketing. Okay, the industry average is actually 4%, 5%. Okay, so when we looked at their third-party delivery percent of total sales, it was only running 19% versus our company average, which is 26%. And we immediately isolated an opportunity for them.
That's incredible.
So there's so many other components within RAD that are, I'm going to call it leading indicators that help drive revenue. So right now we're focusing on employee sentiment driving customer sentiment, driving sales growth. Okay. One of the big misnomers in our industry is that speed of service, even with groups that have drive-through, is the number one indicator of sales growth. It's not. It's actually customer sentiment. Okay. Because at Dave's, we're made to order, and we're making sure that every single bite of our chicken is piping hot and spiced to perfection. And it's a different mindset.
Well, and it's funny. I was just on
mindset.
the phone with. I just released a podcast with Danny Klein from FSR QSR magazine, and he and I were talking about exactly that. Everybody wants to talk about drive-through times, and guest sentiment at Chick-fil-A is through the roof, and their drive-through times are awful as far as a total. And again, I'm not saying that's awful because they're bad operators. It's awful just because total time, because they've got so many people, and I'm sure they compete with you guys. So it was less about bringing that up. But he and I talked about the fact that they set the bar for what people expect, and they are still way beyond. In-N-Out, and again, another institution in Southern California, they also have amazing guest sentiment, and their drive-through times are not the best. And very much so looking at that data and then being able to make some business decisions. Ryan, talk to me a little bit about how do you guys consider what data elements you guys bring in? Because you've got to partner, in my mind, it sounds like you guys partner pretty deeply with the brand to understand who are they and why are they trying to get there before you just start throwing data at them. Because if you don't know where you're trying to get to, you're never gonna find a way to help them. So talk to me about how you and Jeff use even your consulting background and the things that you guys have done in the past to consider that, because it sounds like that's part of the DNA for Rad, is not just throw a bunch of data up and say, here, you guys go figure it out. It's let me help you get to where you're trying to get.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think the genesis there is a bit from our consulting background. Rad isn't just a software that you install that we walk away from and hopefully you can figure out. Rad really is a partnership. We're very blessed with a great set of logos of clients. And what we've done is built really what we consider a strategic ecosystem. Being able to work with the brains like James at Dave's, we continuously build not only our product, but our overall offering, right? We can take ideas that we're developing together to the industry as a whole via our other strategic client partners. And that's really what we're setting out to do here, right? Visionaries, we hope, on a mission to change the way that the restaurant industry consumes and interacts with its data. A big part of it, obviously, is understanding their business, right? Dave's is different than another brand that we work with. Obviously, very similar in a lot of things, but on Dave's main dashboard, you're going to see a metric there that is the attachment rate of in adding cheese modifier to chicken tenders.
Interesting.
So operationally, they're very interested in that metric. It's on their face. It's on their main operations dashboard. It's really a deep understanding of what's driving their business. Now, of course, holistically, we aim to get the enterprise of data for all of our partners. That's when data starts to tell a story. Again, it's that triangulation and correlation. But it all starts with, obviously, what are they selling? Understanding their business, the point of sale, and getting it interactive with them and then going from there. I would say certainly, and you guys were just touching on it, guest sentiment is that first next point of triangulation after sales and labor. And so from our perspective, that will be a key system that we go after, but there is a key understanding of their business before we just start throwing things at them.
Yeah, and just selfishly, James, since I've never ordered cheese on my tenders, help me understand that. There actually is a Dave's right next to my office, so I'm there on a semi-regular basis, and I don't get it. I look at it and go, "That's not something that sounds good to me." So I'd love to understand, and maybe I just need to go try it out.
Don't
Okay,
add cheese.
got ya.
I don't add
It's all
cheese.
good. I was
And just so we're clear, only 17% of the people add
got
cheese.
ya.
So we're
Okay,
clear.
cool. I literally, I look at it and I go, I don't get it, but it's all good. Jeff, help walk us through what an engagement looks like, because I could see myself sitting here as an operator going, this sounds so overwhelming. You guys are going to move my cheese. And so help walk me through what helping them move their cheese, not in a bad way, but in a way that's going to ultimately make a material difference on their guests and on their business looks like. Because all too often I run into operators, they hear about these fantastic things and go, I love it and I don't know how. So make it simple for me. What does it look like to engage with those brands? Because I'm certain that's one of your guys' barriers to entry in some of these places is they don't want to do the hard work to change. They're good with the metrics that they created in 1996 that seem to be working for them.
Man, it is a trick. And you are absolutely correct. Ryan and I, for years, have dealt with this when we talk with people. And one of our very sort of early tactics with this was, here's everything, right? Like, we'll figure it out together. And ultimately, that's not the solution, right? Like, we have to come with a very standardized set of, here's our rollout process. Here's how we're quickly going to show value. Here's how we're going to handle some of your blocking and tackling reporting. But more importantly, this is the path to get you from, I have these 5 systems, to I'm looking at an opportunities matrix within the 4 walls of the restaurant to tell me what to do. So our big focus in the last year or two has been, number one, defining that standardized package that answers 80% of the questions. Number two, providing people with the ad hoc tools that they can use to self-service answer the other 20% of the questions. And then number three, adding on that analyst as a service thing where we get the feedback channel from other partners and help you develop the next gen of prescriptive tools on top of what we've already put together. So that rollout process has been super critical for us, standardizing it, just making sure we can engage people rapidly and tell them, hey, here's what you get as part of this, as opposed to, you have all this, let's figure it out. So big.
And now a word from one of our sponsors. Every restaurant operator understands the chaos of a restaurant kitchen during the meal rush. Restaurant Technologies Total Oil Management Solution is an end-to-end automated oil management system that delivers, filters, monitors, and recycles your cooking oil, taking the dirtiest jobs out of your kitchen and letting your employees focus on more important tasks. Control the kitchen chaos with Restaurant Technologies and make your kitchen safer. No upfront cost. To learn more, check out rti-inc.com or call 888-796-4997. Growing your business can mean big-time logistical questions like, how am I going to keep up with all these local deliveries? Let Uber Direct offer you a helping hand. With Uber Direct, you can take orders on your website, via app, or by phone. Then drivers who are part of the Uber Courier Network will pick them up from your store and deliver them to your customers' doorsteps. Sounds simple, right? Delivery just got better with Uber Direct. Check out uberdirect.com to learn more. I love that you guys have found your way to that, because oftentimes I find even guests on the show, they create the best tech in the world and it sits on the shelf because they can't get operators to change their way of doing business. And so helping walk them through that is really critical.
Absolutely.
James, talk to me a little bit about how you guys get the franchisees to, in franchise environments, you've been around long enough to realize that they never trust what corporate's given them, especially when sales are down. And so help me understand how you take the data. And every time I ask you a question, I feel like I get a chuckle. So for those that are watching this on YouTube, but at the end of the day, they're all skeptical. They all think that they have it figured out. A lot of the brands that you guys are working with are in a place that they have done it before. They've done it with other brands that might be bigger than Dave's. So you're coming to them with something different oftentimes. Help me understand how you get them to internalize this and make better business decisions. You used the example about your Minnesota franchisee just earlier in the show.
Let's put things in perspective. I have franchisees that up until just this year owned more restaurants than Dave had in its ecosystem. I have great people like Paul and Joe Kartzer, whose father started Carl's Jr. Okay.
Yep.
So they have over 100 calls juniors. What am I going to do? Tell them how to run their business? No, I'm not. Look, everybody's going to utilize the tool for the simple things like sales and traffic and things of that nature, right? It really comes down to showing them how to leverage the tool to help them improve, and I'll get back to it, their return on invested capital. We gave an entire breakout session at our franchise convention. We had 450 people there, solely focused on showing them how to improve the return on their investment to pay back 33% faster.
Wow.
Okay. And that resonates with our franchisees. And by the way, so does our current return.
Yeah,
I mean,
your
the
AUVs
reason
are
we're
through the
growing
roof. The volumes are through the roof. People are making money, so
the
that's good.
reason they're good, but what we have built is a system that they can replicate over and over again. And it's that consistency of that replication that gives them the confidence to move faster. Okay. Even myself as a franchisee, I signed up for a 9-unit or 7-unit territory. I've got 3 open. I've got the 4th that I'm building right now. I'm trying to expand my territory, right? I'm a great indicator because I'm actually a very conservative finance person that's willing to go into doing things like signing personal guarantees on leases because that's how strong I feel about the four-wall economic model. Rad supports all of that through our productivity metric.
I love that. So I'm going to ask Ryan, where is it going? Where is Rad going? James would allude to the fact that when they came on board with you guys a couple of years ago, you guys maybe were a little bit raw. You guys have had some really deep levels of understanding of where we're at. But what's the next phase for Rad? Is it just growth of different restaurants? Is it different business models? Help me understand where you guys are at and how you guys see the future of analytics and really predictive analytics that are going to drive behavior. Because part of why this show exists, part of why I do what I do is I love the restaurant industry. It's given me and my family 30 plus years of fantastic opportunities to engage with great people. And I want to see restaurants succeed. Nothing pains me more than when a local restaurant in our industry fails, whether it's a big brand, huge brand, national brand that's struggling, or it's the local watering hole that's struggling. I want to see people succeed, and tools like Rad help people succeed, as James has been talking about the whole show. So, where is it at and where is it going?
Yeah, honestly, where is it going? Our push and our belief and where we're driving development efforts, our approach and our conversations is really that more simplified prescriptive approach to the data, right? And let's be honest, like there's tools out there, there's lots of buzzwords in the analytics space of AI can solve this, just stick this tool on top of that data and this data or whatever and see these insights. It all markets and sells well. Our belief is wholeheartedly that a lot of that, the power there truly is in the cutting through the noise, right? As we talked about earlier, getting the data together into a way that's really purpose built for reporting and analytics. And so to enable some of the hype around words like prescriptive, you still need the wealth of that data, but that's really our approach is more of a simplified to the operator. What are the things that I can do that will have a positive impact on my business today, this week, and then ultimately the long term? So where we're going with that, right, again, is that prescriptive model around our opportunities matrix, but really driving it to be more exceptions based alerts. So then an operator can have on their phone, hey, you hit X in entrees per labor hour as your main productivity metric that we know that we're driving, that we've built a culture around. Your ideal is Z. In your face, you should be paying attention to that. So, really, more of this guided and directed exceptions based alerting towards those prescriptive approach on those productivity metrics. Of course, from there's lots of technology. We've recently implemented things inside of our tech stack where we have enabled natural language query searches, right? So instead of needing to know how to build reports or whatever it may be, an end user can have a business conversation with their data. What are the top 10 stores with the highest labor opportunity last week? Our tool enables that so that somebody can ask those types of questions, see it in their face very quickly and easily. I would certainly welcome Jeff and James to chime in more, but again, we really do see it. Exceptions based alerts around productivity metrics and just making it easier, right? The right metric in the right hand at the right times. And the more we can support that with enabling with technology and features like natural query language is where we're taking our offering.
There's a Ryan 100% right on the product where we need to take it. There's a cool component that's emerging right now for us too. Traditionally, we've grown entirely by word of mouth. And now that we're at volume, there's this bigger feedback channel between ourselves, the brands we work with, where there's starting to become a sense of community as well. I think that's something I want to see as nurture as we, so that we can start having these people talk to each other and really help them create best of breed solutions in their analytics platform.
I love that. And again, I know I gave James kudos earlier, but I love the fact that he's one of those people that's in your guys' advisory group to help you guys drive this product, because he thinks so different than many of the finance people that are in his same space. And not only is he an operator, but he's trying to create something that's going to help the operators get to the best place to be able to drive those things. So is there anything that we missed talking about that you guys want to make sure that our listeners hear? James, is there anything that you went through that you're like, oh, I forgot to talk about this, and you want our listeners to hear about when they go dig into the Rad opportunity?
I think it's like anything else. The tool that you could have the best tool, if it's not adopted by operations at the store level, then it doesn't matter. So I think the adoption of any tool, and I don't care if we're talking about RAD or customer sentiment scrapes or anything else, it needs to be utilized at the store level. It needs to be mobile based. It needs to be productivity measure based. I can't stress that enough. I've been talking about this for a guy so
Mm-hmm.
so many
Yep.
years now, but I really mean it. And I think that there's a struggle in our industry. Understand that the financial model is going to be very dynamic. Take California, right, with the 25% increase in minimum wage. Okay, you cannot manage your labor anymore as a percentage of sales. That's okay, right? At the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, what is the customer experience? How do I support that customer experience with productivity measures? And then more importantly, and I said this earlier, but I'll say it again, how do I push the customer sentiment all the way back to employee sentiment? Because I do think that's going to be a really critical piece of this going forward. At Dave, we focus heavily on productivity measures, but the way we do it isn't by cutting labor. We look at meaningful labor. Okay, what do I mean by meaningful labor? Do you get value out of filling box cups of Dave's sauce? Or do you do that for in-store and you get packets for to go? Okay, that's something at Dave's we did. Do we hire cleaning crews at the end of the night? Because our cleaning crews, the last time I checked, the last thing our employees want to do after a 10-hour shift is clean a toilet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm heavily focused on meaningful labor within the restaurant industry and making our employees' lives better.
Which quite frankly is the problem that every operator that I've talked to in the last couple of years has struggled with, is getting people in the door and keeping them there for any length of time. I love what you guys are doing, Ryan and Jeff. Thank you guys for creating this, because again, for me, it's my favorite to sit and listen. And the fact that you guys were able to bring James on, who's not only an operator, but also is somebody that endorses the product, has been awesome. So thank you guys for your time. Thank you guys for creating a solution that's making a difference in the restaurants that you guys serve. James, thanks for hanging out. And to our listeners, make it a great day.